everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Live, how to build the live streaming experience that your audience wants. We are so excited to be here with you today, here at Bright Cove, to take you through everything from A to Z around live streaming. So, I'd like to introduce really quickly what our agenda is going to be for today. So first we're going to take you through a brief history lesson and really look back at where live streaming was a very long time ago. And then the majority of our session today is going to be our panel discussion. And that's going to be the meat of what we're going to be talking about today. And then of course we're going to have time for Q&A as well. So with me here today, we have Lauren Berry, a product marketing manager here at Bright Cove, and she's going to share some of the more marketing elements around a live stream. And then we have Carl Ruttman. He is our Director of Sales Engineering, and he'll be sharing more of the technical background as far as tips and tricks, do's and don'ts, from a technical expertise for live streaming as well. And my name is Shireen Shaheen, and I'm a Director here at Product Marketing, and I'll be your moderator for today. So before we even get started, I really wanted to share with you the cool experiences that you're going to be seeing in your own live stream today. So we have 3 partners that we've been working with very closely today. We have Fora TV. They're running our entire live stream today. Everything from video production to our social clipping feature, taking our on-demand assets after that. So we're really thankful for them to running this whole event for us. And then we have Pigeonhole. So you're going to be seeing through the session ability to add questions and taking polls, which we're going to get to very soon, for the event. So that's run by Pigeonhole. And it's our audience engagement tool. So this is where we really want you guys to engage with us throughout this event. And then last but definitely not least, we have HapYak. And HapYak is our provider for interactive elements around video. So today you're going to see that we have a toggle on your screen. You're going to see that you can toggle back and forth with the actual session itself, but also the slides. So I will say the majority of the session is going to be conversation that we're going to have, but definitely feel free to toggle over to the slides if you'd like to see that. In regards to the questions and answers before we get going, please be sure to add your name when you enter a question. That way, if we don't get to your questions, we will follow up with email after the session so that then we can address all the questions that you have. If you get prompted for a password, that password is Bright Cove to enter into the Pigeonhole platform. So why don't we go into a more fun part? This is where our audience engagement comes into place. And we're going to do a brief history lesson because who doesn't love history? So we want to learn a little bit about where live streaming was, and then we will talk also about where live streaming has come today. So you're going to see poll questions. They're going to show up on the right, on your right panel. There's going to be 3 questions there, and we're going to talk through all of those questions with you. And in order to take the poll question, after you take that first question, there is an arrow on the top left. So click that, you'll go back to the second question, and then continue on. There's 3 questions total.
And then go back for Q&A.
And then, yes, and then go back at the end of the poll so you can start to enter your questions throughout the whole session. So the first question that we have, who was the first president to take part in a webcasted panel at George Washington University? And we have 4 options for you. George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, or George H.W. Bush. So we're going to wait a little bit to get some of the answers for all of these. So we're getting some responses in right now. So it's funny, actually, some of these questions were used in our own promotional video. Yeah. So some of you may have seen the video, some of the videos that we created for this event. So Lauren, you kind of ran this whole thing where we did these questions. So how was that experience doing that?
It was really fun. I was actually set up in our cafeteria here and caught people as they walked by. So no one knew what was coming, even our CEO, which was really fun.
That's awesome. Cool. So Carl, let's start talking about the answers. What do you think the answer is between those 4?
I'm going to guess that it's Bill Clinton. And
Why is that?
I think he was like caught playing the saxophone, and he decided to like live stream it, or somebody decided to live stream it.
So like, we have to capture that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a cool moment.
Okay.
Internet worthy.
Pretty good logic.
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems like we're actually getting majority of our votes in, and many of you are agreeing with what Carl said. So Lauren, what is the right answer here?
The right answer is Bill Clinton.
Awesome.
He was webcasted with a group of leaders.
Awesome. Very cool. So let's go into our second question. What year did YouTube stream their first live event? Just as a hint for the group, It was hosted by a variety of different celebrities, so that includes will.i.am, Katy Perry, and the Happy Tree Friends. So let's take a second to take that second poll as well. Carl, you were saying earlier you don't even know who these 3 celebrities are.
Yeah, no clue. Sorry.
None of them.
None. I'm an EDM fan. Yes.
That's not one of the ones that
option.
hosted this event. Yeah.
But I do have a good guess for this one. So Bright Cove was founded around 2004, and same thing with YouTube, right around that time. So I'm going to guess that it was 2004 because it's right around that time, and right when you start, that's probably when you want to do a live stream. So
right when video kind of got going,
yeah.
You think live streaming got going around then as well?
I think so too. I know there was very early live streaming in different formats and stuff like that, but I think that this was YouTube's probably first live stream.
Okay.
Around then.
Let's see. Our answers are fluctuating a little bit. Okay. So, a little bit all over the map. Lauren, what is the answer for this?
The answer is actually 2008.
Awesome. So
close.
you were close. A few years later
I
is
think
when the live
YouTube
stream
was
happened.
founded in 2004,
Yeah.
but 2008 was their first live stream.
Yeah. They got to get going a little bit before the live streaming started.
You can't
Right away.
run.
Just go.
Yeah.
Go.
Okay, and now we have our final poll question, and thank you guys for engaging with us. We're getting a lot of great answers here. So the third question is, in 2001, the first live sporting event in the U.S. to be live streamed was a spring collegiate football game. And which school was this? So we have 4 answer choices here. We have Ohio State, we have Alabama, we have Texas A&M, and California Berkeley.
What do you
Okay,
think?
we have a really nice split of answers coming in so far for 2 of these. Carl, what do you
I'm going to
think
guess
the
wrong,
answer is?
aren't I? So I'm actually going to guess California Berkeley because it's in the tech sector, right? That's where tech was. Now we've got a little more tech here in Boston. Happy about that. but really, I think that's what it is. So.
Okay, it's tech there, so they must have been the first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense, but I don't think that's right. Lauren, what's the answer for this
It
one?
was actually Ohio State, or the Ohio State. I don't know which one's actually right. But
Yeah,
that's
some people
what-
say the
yeah.
Ohio State, Ohio
Yeah.
State. Awesome.
I covered
actually,
both.
Majority of our answers got that correct, that it was Ohio State. So thank you everyone for participating in our polls. So again, as a reminder, that was Pigeonhole that helped us with that poll platform to help you engage during a live stream and get our audience involvement, which is always a best practice for live streaming as well. So now, Lauren, can you actually share a little bit about what's happening now with live streaming?
Yeah.
We just did kind of a look back, but what's going on today?
Well, live has really come to be really popular and a popular forum for companies and broadcasting. Obviously, has always been live, but a lot of companies lately have turned to live stream because it is a more engaging platform. It's much more real time. There's more pressure to see it live because it's not something that you can go back to necessarily all the time. So a lot of things that we're seeing are a lot of major sporting events. These are now being published online. I saw some stats last week about the World Cup. They had over 23.3 million hours viewed just for the quarterfinals of the live stream, and that was across multiple platforms through OTT, which is a Bright Cove product, but or Reoperate. But we also see a lot of engagement in terms of internal communication. So whether it's a C-suite interview or your town hall, we're seeing a lot of companies using live to engage remote employees because it's a much more personal experience for people that might not be in headquarters. Another thing we're seeing is growing your audience. So this live stream is actually obviously being live, and then we're also clipping it and publishing those clips to our Bright Cove social channels and then driving people back to the live audience. So we might be capturing people that might not be within our database to get the email invites through our social media. So we're growing our audience even more.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting point. I think usually when we think about marketing campaigns and running events like this, we're always thinking about how to get the audience there ahead of time and what kind of promotions and communications we're going to do, which we will talk about in a second. But it's also important during an actual live stream, how do you engage an audience and in fact grow it? So increasing that number. So hopefully today we're actually seeing the number of our viewers growing as we're running this event. So it's important to think about all of those elements. I think that's newer in the industry right now to do something like that.
Definitely.
So that's great. So I think the verdict here is it's definitely an exciting time to be doing live
Yes.
streaming. That's what I'm
Yes.
hearing. So now, since we're all here to really hear about setting up your live strategy, what are the goals, and the day of, let's get right into that. And we're actually going to get into the panel discussion here around all of these topics. So next, we're going to talk about, you're very early on, and we are just establishing our live strategy. So let's say we're a few months before the event even happens. What are some of the things, we'll start, Lauren, with you. What are some of the things to think about from a marketing and communication standpoint really early?
One thing we definitely need to think about first is who your audience is going to be. Who is your target audience? Is it going to be a certain industry? Are you looking for a certain region? We decided to have this event a little earlier in the day so that we could bring our EMEA team and our Europe offices involved into this, and so we could broaden the communication that way. So establishing who your target audience is probably the key first step. And then once you identify your audience, you need to identify what you want them to walk away from the live event with. So do you want that? Is it a thought leadership panel? Are you doing a tips and tricks? Are you looking to do a product launch? These are all things you need to identify ahead of time so that it helps your communication and it helps you build the story you want to be telling throughout the entire communication and promotion of the event. And then lastly, you want to identify what is success? What is the ROI that you want to build with the event? Is it the number of viewers? Is it the number of registrations? Is it the number of impressions you get through social media? Establishing a goal ahead of time helps you drive your communication, and if you're not hitting the goal or you're seeing a little bit of a lag behind where you want to be, then you can create and amplify as you go forward.
Yeah, and I think that's really important around the ROI. I think a lot of times we kind of forget that sometimes because we're trying to just plan for the event, we're thinking of the day of, but really thinking about what do you want to happen after really early is really important. So you just listed many things. So when did you start thinking about all this? You drove this entire event for our company. So when did you start planning all of this for us?
So we started thinking about actually doing a live stream and a live event probably back in last October when we started to think about what we want to do for our live product launch. So this was a piece of it, but I would say the execution of this was probably about 3 or 4 months ago. So the beginning of the execution.
So the idea was almost a year ago.
Yeah.
Wow. Which sounds like a long time, but time flies, and I can't believe that was a year ago.
I can't believe it's almost October. So.
Yeah, that we started thinking about that, but then more critical stuff a few months ago, you would say.
Exactly.
Very cool. So Carl, we're going to go to you now. So we're still very early in our stages of planning. From a technical standpoint, what is it that you're thinking about in that early phase?
Yeah, from being in the early phase, the easiest things you need to think about are going to be mostly the space itself, right? Where are you going to do the live stream? What's it going to look like? Who's going to be there? Those kinds of things. So you start off by understanding the space itself. And for example, our partner Fora requested pictures of the space and Video Village area, and where are they going to set up? What's the location? Things like that. And then you start to determine, okay, how many cameras do you think you're going to need? Is there audio in the space? Do you need to bring in audio? And then you start to kind of think about the challenges. So for example, here in this space, we have potential external noise challenges, the air conditioning, anything like that that's going to interfere with the audio. And then the last thing that you think about that early on is also, where is it going to be played out? Where is it going to be hosted? Is it going to be
Where are
gated?
people going to watch this?
Exactly. Is it internal, external? Do you want people to watch on apps or on mobile web, that kind of thing, devices or OTT, as mentioned earlier?
Cool. So another thing that we hear very early on, a question, and I know we're going to talk about this a little bit more later in the session, but we hear the comment around making sure your network is strong enough. So what does that mean? That's a question we get a lot from our customers, but what does that mean? Is your network strong enough?
Yeah, because you're live streaming on the internet, you really need to make sure you have a really good connection. So network strength, when people talk about that, is all about connectivity. So how many megabits do you need up or down, et cetera? And I think it's pretty simple. You talk to IT, you talk to whoever's on site, and just make sure you have a solid internet connection. You really don't want to rely on Wi-Fi or hotspots from cell phones and stuff like that.
And we'll get into a little bit more of that, of how to plan for things like this, and in case something goes wrong during the live stream. I know we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So now what's really important, what we really gear up to, is a kickoff meeting. And we have a specific section to talk about this because although that seems like maybe not part of a planning, but it's something we do a lot here at Bright Cove. We do kickoff meetings for everything, from our launches for products to a sales training that we have, and we need a cross-functional group to get together. So Lauren, you drove the kickoff meeting for this event. So when was that? What were the groups that were involved, and what were some of your goals for that meeting?
Sure. So the kickoff meeting for this was probably about 2 months ago. It had our demand gen team, it had our creative team, it had some sales involved, we had IT involved, and then obviously product marketing. The goal of the event is to make sure that everyone's excited and knows what we're looking to get going with, so that when it comes time for execution, everyone is aligned and understands what we're looking to do. I also had a kickoff call for Fora in terms of bringing them in. Again, like Carl was saying, they asked for pictures of the space.
Yep.
We had a discussion of how many cameras we want to have. We had a discussion of, is there going to be an audience here, or do they have to account for that within the noise elements? And so it really is just helping getting everyone aligned to make sure that the execution is flawless.
And something important you mentioned is just the excitement around the event and getting everyone excited and all on the same page, get the questions out early.
Exactly.
And then continue meeting kind of as we go on, which we'll talk about a little bit. So I'm really glad both of you have talked about some of the logistical pieces in very early planning. I think a lot of times we think logistical elements come very close to the event, but it's actually really critical to think about those really early as well. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that. So now we're going to go into a little bit closer to the event. We have a little timeline here, as you guys can tell. So we are now, let's say, a couple months out. So not too far out, but not too close either. So I'm going to start, Lauren, again with you from a marketing standpoint. Can you describe a little bit on the communications plan? So your pre-event plan, during event plan, and your post-event plan. What does that look like to get your audience there?
Sure. This is where I sit with the demand gen team and figure out exactly what we're looking to do and all of the avenues that we're looking for the promotion. Is it going to be through email? Are we doing it through social media? Are we doing it through banner ads? We have it here at Bright Cove. We have the ability to have it within our product. So we make sure we have it at 2 spots in our product, and also having our sales team promoting to their audiences and prospects and customers as well. So establishing how you're going to drive attendance and registration for the event is definitely key. During the event, we want to make sure that whoever is publishing to social understands how to work the clipping and what social channels they're going to. These are all things we talk about ahead of time. And then obviously we have the post-event, and that's where you get into what are we doing after? Are we doing a targeted follow-up? Are we using the on-demand version for our follow-up? Do we need to have blogs included? A big piece that goes into the planning for the event is actually figuring out what kind of content you need. So for this event, we did a lot of videos, and we really saw that be kind of a fun element, and it was actually a lot of fun to do, and it sort of got the sales teams excited and to promote to their audience. So that was really fun. And then also making sure that even though your plans should be mostly set, things happen. Carl could fall off his chair. It would be a funny blooper, and we could really highlight. Yeah, let's not. We could really highlight that going forward, and that would drive an audience because it's kind of fun. And we're having fun, and this is a live event, and we're trying to get good information out, but just making it a personality. Bringing a personality is fun.
Yeah, so we did do a lot for this event. So what do you think worked the best in getting our audience here? Were there 1 or 2 things in the promotional plan that you think was great?
I definitely think we did a really solid execution in getting it on LinkedIn. A lot of our sales team published the few videos that we did on LinkedIn, which is new for us, and I thought that was kind of fun, and a lot of their customers are really excited about it, about attending, but we also tend to see a lot of engagement within our product. So I'd say between
as far as promoting it on our product,
between the promotion within the product, our sales promotion, and then also email, obviously.
Which honestly, it's do everything you can to reach different audiences in different places. Everything from social to inside your product to a video on LinkedIn.
Exactly.
So very cool. So you just talked about more the marketing communication, so the external factor of communication. So what about internally? So we had a kickoff meeting, but then what? What happens with all the internal teams as we're planning?
So throughout the entire planning, I always wanted to make sure that our teams are aligned in exactly what's going on. So especially these past few weeks, it's been who's running what, who's going to be taking pictures, who's going to be running the chat, who's going to be running the slides, making sure everyone is aligned internally. I created a doc that has what we're showing on the screen and what we're trying to say and our talking points so that everyone's aligned. So when we have our social clipping, if they think that that'll be something we should capture and highlight, they already have that ahead of time. So they know that it's coming up.
So it's continuous meetings, keeping everyone in the loop, transparency, alignment. Yeah, very important. And especially with partners. So if you do have partners that are involved in the event like we do today, same thing.
Exactly.
Getting the partners involved and speaking to them very regularly about what they're looking for and making sure the same goals. Awesome. So back to Carl. So now we are still a couple months away. We talked about very early stages. Now a couple months, technical stuff. What should we be thinking about?
Along the same lines of partners. So for example, you really want to start to finalize your technical plan and start to understand, can you handle this type of event in-house, or do you need to bring in third-party partners? So for example, we decided to bring in Fora to help us with the live stream. There's a lot of equipment, there's a lot of lighting, there's audio, there's all kinds of stuff that goes into it, and doing it as a one-man show, it's possible sometimes, but in this particular case, we brought in a partner to do that.
You know you do one-man shows.
I try. So I think that's one of the important things is bringing in help if you need it. For example, we also decided early on that we were going to bring in Happy Act to do the slide sync, and we're going to bring in Pigeonhole to do the questions and answers and polls. And all those things formulate and help kind of sway the tech plan, not only the marketing side, but really understand who needs to be there, the space itself. And then, again, just creating that final equipment checklist, understanding how many cameras, microphones, and all that.
The partner piece was actually a big element of this too, because we brought in some of their story to help promote our story. We had a blog from Fora, which they are the leader in the industry of doing live events. So they walked through some great tips. We have one that'll be coming from Happy Act soon, and we had one from Pigeonhole. So it helps continue our story and involve our story and help promote and tell a broader story of Bright Cove.
So everything you can do for this type of event. So we do have a couple of good questions in there. I'm going to take some questions as we're going, as it's relevant, and then we'll definitely have some time in the end to take some more questions. So Carl, I think this one's great for you. So someone's asking if they're running a live event, it's a virtual conference, is there an optimal maximum amount of viewers that can be on there? I think this comes back to the network a little bit, but is there something to think about there?
It's funny, yes and no. Thing is that when you're running a virtual conference and you're doing a live stream like we're doing today, there is no theoretical limitation, especially when you're running through something like the Bright Cove platform. There is no maximum number of viewers. We've had and hosted events with multiple hundreds of thousands of concurrent viewers. So that's really not an issue.
Okay. Good. So go for it, and don't worry about the number of viewers that you have. Go big or go home. Okay, awesome. So thank you for sharing all of that. So now we're going back. So now we're getting closer to the event. We're a few days out, and we're going to think about the marketing elements again. And now it's getting really critical to get our registrations up, get people there. So Lauren, can you talk a little bit about what your focus is from a marketing perspective a few days before, even let's say last week for this event? What was on your mind?
So on my mind was definitely driving the last-minute registrations, making sure that our last-minute promotions are going out, our last-minute emails are going out. We actually often see a majority of our registrations come within the day or two before the event.
That's interesting.
And the ones that register the day or two before are usually higher likely to attend. It makes sense because I know what I'm doing tomorrow. I might not know what I'm doing 2 weeks from tomorrow.
True.
So
don't underestimate promoting up until last minute. Like when was our last email for this?
This morning at 9 a.m. An hour ago.
An hour ago,
Yeah. So it often helps to do last minute registrations. I can't tell you how many webinars I signed up for that I got an email maybe a few days or an hour or two before. So
and you joined.
I'm like, I have free time during lunch. I can join that. So
and we actually the three of us were talking yesterday about this a little bit, and a feature as simple as adding to your calendar So we did that for this event, but we basically all agreed if it's not on our calendar, we're not going to be there.
Exactly.
That's personally and professionally for me at least. So if it's not there, we're not going to be there. So think about things like that. It may seem minor, but it impacts the type of platform you're using, type of features you want, again, in the phases of planning, because you need to enable a very easy process, right, for your audience to sign up.
And that's a great point. We actually transitioned from our landing page for this event because we couldn't get that ad calendar to it. So
we went and used something else that we could.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. I remember we talked about that.
Yeah, definitely. Some other things that have been on my mind are definitely sending those final internal communications. I sent a very long email yesterday to almost everyone that's currently in the room that no one else can see about exactly who's doing what and anything that, just so that everyone that is on site that has a role within this live event understands what everyone else is doing and exactly sort of their task as well.
Yep. Awesome.
Yeah. It also is your presentation wrapped up?
Yeah.
Were our slides done? Were they turned into a PDF? Have we practiced? Dry runs are a big piece for what we're looking to do.
Yeah.
And then also, I think we had 4 dry runs for this, maybe like 6 because we did it a few times this morning.
Yep.
So just making sure that we are ready in terms of our script and our presentation.
Yeah,
and
never enough preparation, I would say, for something like this.
No.
And then
Although
Carl,
some people like to wing it, but not me.
I mean, there's an element of being natural on a live stream because it is
Carl's winging
live.
it.
So I think on a live stream, be as natural as you can be,
Yeah.
but also know the topics of what you want to discuss and make sure you address
Exactly.
all of those as well. And then Carl, what about you? So we're a few days out.
A few days out, yeah. I mean, it depends on when you get access to the space, but usually a few days out or the day before you do all of the last minute stuff. So your technical load in, right? Getting the gear into the building, getting it set up, getting everything plugged in and wired and tested, doing a walkthrough with the crew so that they understand which way you're going to be facing when you're going to be talking. Lighting, things like that. That noise, that air conditioner, again, that things that are going to interfere with you and your presentation potentially.
Are all the pieces working?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Hack and
Yeah, all the partner stuff.
Yep.
Got to make sure that's all working as well. And then finally, the most important piece, the networking, right?
Yep.
So again, this is where you really do your speed tests. You make sure that you have enough connectivity.
Yep.
You can get your stream out. Do you have an encoder on site? Are you doing in-cloud transcoding? All of these things are generally used at the as a plan.
Yep.
However, at the last second, you might have to pivot for some reason.
Yeah, and who are there are a few different elements there. Are there different people in an organization that you usually reach out to get some of those? So who do you speak to about network? Who do you speak to about the other things you mentioned?
Sure, yeah. I mean, you're going to have facility staff, so those are the people that can control the air conditioner, the lighting, that kind of thing, maybe doors or windows, whatever else needs to be controlled. You'd be surprised. Shading is huge. The shades on the windows could be a big deal.
Yeah,
we were
it's
messing
true.
with those for a while.
Yeah.
So I think, networking is really back to IT. It's really a separate function, dedicated function. All of the event spaces tend to have dedicated IT infrastructure that come in and talk to you. And those people are the ones that can enable something called quality of service, for example. And what that does is prioritize your live stream on the network over any other traffic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if audience at the event all of a sudden starts watching YouTube videos or whatever on their phones, that traffic won't interfere with your traffic.
Oh, that's
Things
awesome.
like that. So that's why it's all about networking. And testing day of or day before is very, very critical for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what about a backup plan? What's that like? And what do you think is important to consider in a backup plan?
Yeah, with the backup plan, it's really interesting because you have so many potential options. You really have to figure out what's going to be the path of least resistance. So, for example, here what we have is we have a hardwired Ethernet connection, and we have a secondary network that we could cold back up over into. And that means that the stream goes down for a second, but you plug in and you go right back up.
Is that called redundancy?
It's cold redundancy.
Yeah.
So hot redundancy would be if we had a secondary network and a load balancer, and a load balancer just says, oh, this internet went out, I'm going to go to this one. And that happens automatically.
Yeah.
And that's
I wish I had that
something
at
really-
home.
Yeah, it would be nice.
My internet goes out, I get another one.
A couple ISPs, yeah. So, and then obviously, the next thing that you think about is if you can't have either of those, what do you have? Do you have Wi-Fi? I mean, you don't want to jump on the Wi-Fi next door from the restaurant, but maybe you have a Wi-Fi hotspot as an emergency backup, things like that.
Awesome. So, do you have an example of any situation, you know this question was coming,
I do know
where
this.
something went wrong in a live stream, and what happened, and what did you guys do about it?
I'll give you a scenario. This is one of my funnest stories. I really enjoyed this in the end, after it was all over.
When it was done.
When it was done.
As a story, you enjoyed it.
You can
Yes,
look
yeah.
back.
During the moment, I was a little sweaty. So I was.
We're in Vegas, so.
I was. So the story's in Vegas, and I got sent out to do a
As all
conference.
stories are.
But most of whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. This one was broadcast
We're gonna
live.
share this one.
So yeah.
Outside of Vegas.
So we were broadcasting live, and we had a 3-day, 24/7 live stream, and it was kind of interesting. There was a lot of really cool bands, and there was a lot of really interesting things that were going on. So people were tuning in and out throughout that 24-hour life cycle for the 3 days. Well, I'm sleeping in the hotel room, and I get a phone call that says, the backbone for the state of Nevada has a hiccup. And I say, okay,
The
what does that
entire
mean?
state.
Yeah, the entire state of Nevada. And I'm like, all right, well, come on, that can't be it. So I run down to the server room where we have 3 hardware encoders. And we actually have 3 dedicated internet service providers with several load balancers in between. So that we figured, well, if one goes down, it'll just auto flip to the other. That's a hot backup, so no need to touch anything. And then we figured, well, if 2 goes down, we have a third, so we're fine. Well, apparently all 3 providers were leveraging the same backbone. So what happened is all 3 go out, we are dark. So
wow.
the live stream is down, there is no live stream, you are just dead in the water. And luckily on me, I had my Verizon hotspot.
Just happened to.
Well, I always
Or-
carry it with
okay,
me to
that's
live
good.
events. Yeah,
So always
that's it.
carry your-
always carry
Always
hotspot.
grab with you.
It's not. It wasn't like the most amazing connection, but what I was able to do was actually reroute one of the routers to get onto the Wi-Fi hotspot, and we had an encoder send a single stream up to Brightcove in cloud transcoding, and we were able to do transcoding in the cloud, which let me use a hotspot as opposed to an encoder on site.
Yeah.
A lot of technical details, but we ended up streaming for about 8 hours on a Wi-Fi hotspot
Wow.
until the internet became stable again
Yeah.
in the building.
Yeah. And this is something we didn't have any control over. This was a state
Correct.
issue.
Yeah.
You can't really anticipate that.
No.
Completely
So
outside of the building.
tip is carry your hotspot with you in your pocket. And I think you mentioned yesterday
Your go bag.
you slept like overnight.
Yeah, I was lucky enough where one of the encoder boxes that I had shipped had some bubble wrap, so I used that as a pillow, and I slept on the
Nice.
floor of the server room that
So
night.
maybe bring a sleeping bag to your
Yeah,
events.
A little.
Yeah, and these things happen, so it's always important to have some sort of backup plan, and even have someone. We have today someone on hand for support. So reach out to your support team and think about kind of who can be there if there's anything that comes up last minute to really help out, because you really never know. There's a lot of things outside the control of the platform itself that could happen, and you want to be as prepared as possible, as we always say.
Definitely.
Okay, so we're going to go to the most exciting part, the day of the event. So there's a lot of planning.
Today.
Yeah, today. We talked about a lot of planning. So if everything goes well with all that planning, my guess is this should be a breeze the day of, right? Like we did nothing today. We just showed up. Is
Yeah.
that the case?
Yeah, essentially, there's always pressures of the day of, are we wearing matching shoes? Do we have the right outfits on? Do we know what we're talking about? But essentially, we should be at a point where everything is set. All you have to do is just show up, have some donuts that we brought in, and get ready for the day.
Awesome. And how did you both feel this morning when you knew the
Good.
event was coming?
Solid. Yeah.
Good.
I've got no notes. I've got nothing. Day of, really, nothing. You
No
come in, you
notes.
push a button. You just push a button and you go.
From
Yeah.
the tech side.
Yeah. And honestly, even though we're joking a little bit, it's true. The more prepped you are, we did our dry runs yesterday, we've done all of our testing, and we really did show up this morning and just kind of got ready with the Fora TV team, and they helped prepare
Yeah.
us, and
Got
then
our
we're
mics
here,
ready.
got our mics ready, did some testing, that's important. So I would say definitely leave a couple hours before the event, definitely don't show up 15 minutes before and
Yeah.
expect everything to work, but leave some time for that. But if you do prep well, you should be ready for the day of the event. So
Yeah, that's one of the key things we wanted to definitely stress for this part is that the more you prepare, the less stress you have on the day of, especially if you're the presenter. So I planned this, and Carl is here from the technical spot. Most of my work was done yesterday. So today it was just showing up and making sure.
yeah. And your email,
my hair
is,
looked
everyone's
nice.
doing this. Roles and responsibilities is really important because as presenters, you need to be kind of on for
Yeah.
the event and not worrying about anything else. So that was really
Yes.
important that you did yesterday.
And dedicate someone. So we have our director for partners here, and he is my go-man, my wingman for this. So he flew in from California to specifically be here for this. Well, his partners are here as well. So
Yep.
just have a dedicated person that is your go-to to
Yep.
help answer questions.
Yes,
So.
very important. Okay, so now we don't want to forget that we did all the prep and then we have the event, but now what about after the event? So There's a little bit of celebrating. Maybe we take a day off, relax a little bit. No, Carl doesn't take any days off. Shaking his head.
Have some wine.
Have some wine. So what do we do after? So what are some important things? We talked about goals, Lauren, you mentioned really early, and goals that we've set for ourselves for this event. What do we need to think about from an ROI perspective as any marketing campaign goes? That's really important. So what is it you're thinking about for a post-event?
So we established the goals ahead of time. So we established how many people we want to have register. We have a goal of how many attendees we are hoping to see. And we also here at Brightcove have attribution, which is something we look at. So when we build campaigns here, the demand gen team looks at all the pieces that go into the overall campaign as pieces of attribution. So we should be able to see that relatively quickly because all of the campaign elements that went into this, we should start seeing some obviously the attendees of this will be a piece of it. So pretty much right away. We're looking at that. We're also looking at making sure our follow-up plan is ready to go. When is the VOD going to be all set? Is the email ready? Do they have copy? Do we have the attendee list pulled down from the landing page? Stuff like that. All pretty much basic follow-up elements. But is there, again, like a funny thing that you can pull in to help promote the follow-up? Do we want to continue to use the VOD on social to continue engagement and push new audiences to the follow-up, to the on-demand version of this as well?
So similar to a kickoff meeting, what we've talked about after this is a debrief meeting.
Definitely.
So we do that a lot as well here whenever we have a large project or a large launch to make sure we all get back together and talk about that. So when do you think would be a good time to do that meeting and bring everyone together?
Probably about a week or two away. A lot of the elements to running a live event were there's a lot of pieces, so you have to think back and exactly what you did and the roles and responsibilities that everyone had. But generally, probably about a week or two out.
Yep, and you learn a lot. I mean, this is
learned a lot.
One of the first ones that we've done with partners, and it's been great, and it's came together so well.
Yep.
There's a lot of learning that happens with that too,
Definitely.
on the different elements of where they come in for a live stream event, and when to bring them in, and all of that,
Exactly.
and what they're looking for out of it, and things like that.
Yeah, it was about a week ago that I was like, well, I should have someone that needs to answer the questions, and I also should have someone that needs to change the slides. These are all things that you think about as you're preparing everything and dedicating.
Yep. And
the
then we'll
roles.
look back after the event and post-event, review how all of that went, and see what we can improve the next time around. And then, Carl, what about you? So the event's done. What do we do? All the technical side of it. Can you talk a little bit about the analytics that we should be looking at?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, now that the event is done, from a technical perspective, everything just gets shut down and packed away. But we do still have kind of responsibility. So, for example, we help with getting numbers, understanding how many viewers showed up, where did they come from, that kind of thing. Those are all analytics that we can pull post-event. But then we're also doing things like evaluating the performance of the network, the streams, and things like that, so that we can make better choices next time. You know, we always try to take away something with us for the next event as a best practice. And then don't forget clipping out the VOD, the whole event as a whole, to make it available, to be able to post up later and things like that.
Yeah, so as Lauren mentioned earlier, we're doing that for our own event. So taking clips through it, promoting it on social. So that can happen during the event, but after the event, take those same clips or take the entire asset and then think about where you might host it, and then a whole marketing campaign to get people there. So we'll probably start talking about that as well.
This whole live event, if you turn it into an on-demand asset, you can leverage multiple ways. Pieces of content in the future, if you're building nurture campaigns, if you're writing a blog about something specific, you can take a piece of it to help promote that and like jazz it up a little bit.
So it's important to think about with these on-demand assets for video, whether it's live or not, you can extend the life of that content. So it's not just today and then it's done. You have the content, you do the live event, but then now what can we do with everything? We'd have 5 clips and a whole on-demand asset, and there's so much potential to continue to engage the audience and follow up and things like that. Awesome. So we're actually going to get into some questions that we've had. So we've had a few questions that have come in. So this is a good question. I think, Carl, this would be great for you. So do you recommend this type of setup? So this is a little bit of a larger scale. We have an entire team here.
We wish I could turn the camera.
Yeah, I wish you could see it, but there's many people on the background that are helping run this event. But what about for a smaller scale event? What does that look like? Can you do a small live stream, and what is that?
Absolutely. I think it's totally possible for you to have, you know, as we alluded to earlier, kind of a one-man show live stream. I think that there's a lot of technical challenges that can be overcome by a single person if you're only doing a one, maybe two camera setup at most, if the cameras are fixed, if you could do your audio ahead of time, lock it in, things like that. So there's definitely ways that you could do this as a one-man show. But in this particular case, we have the support of Fora, and this really brings in a lot more people. There's a technical director, there's an audio person, there's camera people, there's all these things, stage director, for example, that interacts with talent. You know, it's really important to have someone talk to the people presenting. So it depends. I think it depends on your setup and the event space and things like
But
that.
definitely possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And depends on the goals.
Yeah.
We all know, many people go on Facebook Live and it's one person for a small business that's running. That's a live event. It's just very different from something like this. So we've done this in association with a product launch.
Yep.
So it's an entire campaign around it. And that's why this one is a little bit larger scale. But really any size, it sounds like you could manage
Any
and run.
size is possible.
Yeah. We also do, we have a Women of Bright Cove Association, and we live stream every month. So that's run by two people, I think, one person.
And that's our internal.
It's our internal focus.
Yeah.
But yeah, the live stream is run through our IT team and one of our product marketing specialists.
So we don't have an entire team that comes in
No.
for that because it's smaller. It's an internal
They use hand
program.
mics, one
We
camera.
use hand mics, and one camera. Yep. Okay, so this is another good question. How early should we bring in our video and IT team when we're planning a live stream?
Sure. I think as early as you can. Again, if it's an internal event, that means you have access to these people. You generally have access to the event space.
Yeah.
So I would say a couple weeks out at least would be really great. You can obviously do it the day before, a couple days before, but that might limit your options.
Yeah.
What kind of gear
Like
you could
who's
get on
available.
site, who's available.
Yeah.
Vacation time.
Yeah.
Don't
And
forget, people
vacation
plan
time.
vacations,
That's
so if you can
true.
get around that.
Yeah. So Lauren, you started engaging with some of those teams too internally
Yeah.
between support and IT. And when
I
did
would
you
say
when did you
probably
do that?
about a month or two
Okay.
ago.
Yep.
When we established that Fora was coming on site to
Yes.
run this,
Yeah.
they gave their requirements and I brought them
Yeah.
to support.
And that's a good point. So because we had a partner come in, that part happened a little bit earlier.
Correct.
Because they need to collaborate and work with our IT team. But if it's just your own team, probably doesn't need to be a couple months out. A couple weeks might be sufficient just to say, hey, we need
Yeah.
someone on hand and to help with some of the elements. So this one's a little bit more on content and types of events. So
Perfect.
what kind
For
of
me.
events should you do with a live stream? You started talking about it a little bit early on, but what are some of the use cases and nice ways to use a live stream?
So we're doing this to help with a product launch. You can do a live stream for anything, essentially. Anything you think other people will want to watch, whether it is a soccer game, whether it is your CEO town hall and you want your employees to be watching that, whether it's a plant growing, I don't really know. But you can live stream almost anything.
A time lapse.
Yeah.
But actually, if you think about it, live streaming is all about appointment viewing,
Yeah.
right? It's about creating something that people are going to want to watch in the moment,
Exactly.
as opposed to video on demand. If you can
Yeah.
get away with video on demand, do that later,
Yeah.
because you
It's
have
more
a lot
time
more.
sensitive.
It
and
is.
It sort of it gets a sense of urgency to people to actually tune in because we might say
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Are you having a product announcement?
Yeah.
Is there some news that you might want your
Yeah.
audience to know that is time sensitive and
Yep.
and you want to get the message out in a more personal way?
Yeah, and I think this might be a personal opinion, but I think there's a little bit more excitement around a live stream
Yep.
because it's live. Like we're live right now, and we are
Who
changing.
knows what we're gonna
Who
say,
knows what we're going to
so.
say?
I'm buckled in. I'm not falling off the chair. I
Glad you
buckled
haven't
up. I'm
fallen
good.
off the chair yet. So another question is around time. Is there an ideal time for a live stream event? Time as in the length. Like, how long should it be?
Yeah, so this is about an hour, but we've seen keynotes that are 2-3 hours long. I guess, again, it's really depending on what your audience is, what the event is. Is it an actual event? Is it a panel discussion?
It could be a conference that was like
Yeah.
3 days, you mentioned,
Yeah.
in Vegas.
Absolutely.
I don't think a
Yeah.
panel conference people would want to watch for multiple hours. I think 45 minutes to an hour is
Yeah.
about sufficient for
Yeah.
that. But
These are all really good questions, and I think the theme we're hearing is it really depends on your goals. So what are you actually trying to do? If it's a 30-minute live stream to announce something, or is it a 3-day conference live stream that's ongoing with all the sessions? So those are two very different
I think
use
with
cases.
conferences, what's really interesting is that people tend to set up appointment viewing for the conferences themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So what they'll do is they'll take out the individual sessions and break them out.
Yeah.
So they're going to live stream the keynotes, and then they'll either live stream the individual sessions that are happening, or they'll use
on
those as
demand.
VOD.
True.
Right.
Yeah, we have our big conference that's in May, and we do similar things. So we stream our sessions and the keynotes and take those assets later. So yeah, it really depends, I think, is the answer there as far as what the content is.
It's all about your goals. Again.
Yeah, it really is all about our goals. There's a question about clipping and how we're doing that.
So-
can either of you speak to that?
Yeah, so we have within the Bright Cove Live new UI that launched in July, there's clipping within the interface of it. So you're able to, while the stream is running, create clips that you would like to either save as a VOD or publish to social.
And you can do all of that during the event.
Yeah, within the Bright Cove UI.
Cool. So while your live stream is running, you take that clip, post it wherever you want on social, and
Yeah, Facebook,
that's
YouTube,
bringing
Twitter.
more audience back as well. And then there is another question in here around the slides and how we're doing that. How are we doing that slide
So the
feature?
slide sync, what we did is we have a presentation that we created out of PowerPoint or whatever, Google Slides, and then you export it as a PDF, and then you get it into HappyYak. And HappyYak allows you to have that slide functionality where you're not only showing the slides themselves, but now you can balance the size of the screen that you're watching, either the slide deck or us.
Or our faces.
So you have that ability to move around. Whatever's more important to you, you can watch.
Yeah.
Cool. So that actually wraps up our questions and everything for today that we've covered. So I did want to take a moment to thank our partners. So we have 3 really critical partners here today. We have Fora TV. Thank you so much for helping run this entire live stream for us. It's been so helpful to collaborate with you guys. HappyYak for the slide sync. Thank you guys for that. You guys, the audience saw that entire engagement with the slides, as Carl just mentioned. And then Pigeonhole, the polls, the chats, the Q&A, that's powered by Pigeonhole. So thank you to them. And then, of course, thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Carl, for being here and helping share the marketing and technical expertise that you guys have and how we ran this event today. So that was really nice to hear. And of course, thank you to our audience. Thank you guys for joining. Again, if we didn't get to any of your questions, we will get to them. We'll email you guys after. And we hope you enjoyed it. And we hope to see you at a future event as well.